A future really important upcoming vote is gonna be like the token migration, because currently our utility token milk has no decimal places, which is kind of sad, because people have, if the milk price is high, people have to spend so much money to get some milk, you know? And additionally, it causes issues during trading because you're missing decimal places, so we can't give you the best possible price for small amounts and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that's upcoming. And the two big options there in terms of migration are like a complete migration, that is simply moving to a new token and having like an event where we move everything over, like liquidity and stuff like that. And the other would be to have like a wrapped token. So that's definitely something that we will vote about soon again. And yeah, we will also put out another post explaining them in more detail. We already did that, but I think there's still like more explanation to do.
What is going on? Ada Nation, welcome to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed here as a part of day number 2 of the Rare Evil Conference taking place at the Gaylord Rockies in Denver, Colorado. I am joined by Pascal, head of the Muesliswap DEX. Pascal, you've come a long way. How was your trip? How are you doing today?
Oh, the trip it took a long time, but we finally got here. And I already enjoyed the Hydra workshop, so it was quite interesting to see how everything works. And yeah, it has been a good time here so far.
I'm happy to hear that, and I haven't had the time to catch any of the workshops, but that seems to be the general consensus that a lot of people have really enjoyed what they've learned so far and what they've interacted with so far.
I mean, it's also a good and bad thing, but the workshops all are kind of long, so you can get through a lot of things, but it's also like in conflict with all the talks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's been almost like a battle to pick what you want to attend and what you want to do, because there's just so much going on in all these different breakout session rooms. Now, that aside, again, it's always good to have you here, and to have you here, let's chat a little bit about Muesliswap and what you guys are doing. For those of you who are watching this video, if you guys are not familiar, they are going to be in order book style decks right now, building on Cardano, and I believe you guys are going to be expanding and putting out some new contracts. But before we get into that, let's touch on one of the most recent updates that you guys have had, and that is going to be with respect to your DEX Aggregator. So for people that aren't familiar with an aggregator, can you explain how that works and what makes the V2 version of your aggregator different?
Yes, so in the basic V1 aggregator version, we basically only searched all the DEXs for the best possible price. So we only swapped against a single DEX. So for example, if MinSwap had the largest pool somewhere, it's likely that we would swap against this pool. But now, with the release of Aggregator V2, we integrated multi-DEX swaps. So now you're not limited to one single DEX, but can swap against multiple DEXs at the same time. This, because of this, you don't have to be that careful about price movements anymore, and you should get a better price. Basically, with any large order, like really large orders that shift like the price point in the pool, will profit from the DEX Aggregator V2 and multi-DEX swaps.
It's interesting to see how the ecosystem has matured, where the very first version of DEX aggregators were just looking at one single DEX, and that in itself was providing a benefit because it saved you time from having to look across 4 or 5 different DEXs on Cardano. But with this V2 version, it's also taking into account some of the price impacts, right? As well as a new feature, which I believe you may want to touch on, which is partial fills on multiple DEXs. So how does that work, and how are you guys able to figure out, where and how to come to that conclusion?
You mean how we actually calculate the best split, basically?
Yeah,
okay. So it's not that easy. Basically, we're doing some local optimizations and stuff like that with a random-based search at some point, but it's too technical to explain here. But we have like an algorithm working on it that's like guaranteed to find the best possible swaps within a few percent.
Interesting, and I completely understand with respect to it being a pretty heavy calculation. I'm not a technical person, but I'm assuming there's a lot of math, right, and a lot of calculation that goes into figuring out, how can we get the best price.
Yeah, it's actually quite manageable if you get into it, but first of all, you have to know pool calculations work in the first place. So yeah, there's a lot of math involved.
Agreed. So that said, that actually launched, if I'm not mistaken, on last Sunday or August 18th. So is this live on the mainnet right now, the aggregator?
Yeah. You can check it out. Just visit our site, go to the swap page, and you should definitely see like an option like multi-DEX aggregation. And by default it's enabled, but you can of course disable it if you don't want to do that. And if there's a better swap using DEX aggregation, we will show you how much you will earn, like how much more you will get or how much ADA you will save by going through multiple DEXs. And we will also show you a quick overview, like a small plot down below, where what is going.
Perfect. I will go ahead and actually put that up on the screen right now for the viewers so they can go ahead and get an idea as to what you're talking about. Now, that's, I think, going to wrap it up with respect to DEX aggregation. You guys have also had a pretty big milestone here within the last month or so, which is going to be surrounding governance. So do you mind touching on, how you guys are able to take temperature checks off-chain, and then how you're also able to use the MILK token and actually do governance on-chain?
Yes, so we recently introduced delegated voting because for us it was important that people could vote on governance, and your vote is based on the amount of MILK you have. So because MILK is our utility token, it only makes sense to do it like that. But because of technical reasons, this is not compatible with hardware wallets. That's why we recently introduced delegated voting, which allows you to basically delegate your hardware wallet to a software wallet and then vote for all of your MILK. Or if you have like multiple wallets where MILK is spread across, you can vote with a single wallet at once.
That is, I think, something that I actually have not heard of before, right, with the delegated voting, where you're able to get all of the sums in terms of the MILK token you hold, and then delegate that to one single source and then use that single source to vote. Thank you for providing that clarity, because I kept hearing that word or that term, but I treated it just as regular voting. I didn't understand that you could actually pool all of your MILK or your governance tokens and then vote.
That's like an additional feature. It's mentioned like slightly on the page for it, but it's maybe too much text on the page in general, because we try to, make it easy for people to understand, but because of that, we just have to explain so much.
No, thank you for that explanation, and it definitely clears it up for me.
Yeah.
And so, with respect to governance, what has been voted on, if anything? I believe you guys had your first test vote, right, where you guys were asking the community about how long they wanted votes to last for, whether or not they wanted votes to be incentivized. And I think there was one third criteria, which is escaping me right now, but, has this been done on the mainnet? Are you guys just on the testnet? And what are the plans for future votes?
So all the test votes so far, even though they're called test votes, have been done on mainnet. We have had a first test vote. It's already had a couple months ago, I think. But during that, we noticed that like all the hardware wallets are having issues. That's why we introduced delegated voting, and following that, we had another test vote. And you already mentioned it. We had a third test vote. You can never have too many tests.
You cannot.
No. And a future really important upcoming vote is going to be like the token migration, because currently our utility token MILK has no decimal places, which is kind of sad, because people have, if the milk price is high, people have to spend so much money to get some milk, And additionally, it causes issues during trading because you're missing decimal places, so we can't give you the best possible price for small amounts and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that's upcoming. And the two big options there in terms of migration are like a complete migration, that is simply moving to a new token and having like an event where we move everything over, like liquidity and stuff like that. And the other would be to have like a wrapped token. So that's definitely something that we will vote about soon again. And we will also put out another post explaining them in more detail. We already did that, but I think there's still like more explanation to do.
Thank you for that. So for any milk holders right now, if I understand correctly, they'll be able to vote as to how they want the token migration to occur? And you just gave both of the scenarios.
Yeah, so the vote didn't start yet, but it will do in the future, and we will have a governance post on it first in our forum, so people actually can discuss it, and maybe they want to vote about a third option we don't even know about. Who knows?
That is true. They might actually propose something that they want that may not be on your radar. That's really what I love about governance, right? Everybody gets to have their voice heard. And with respect to the milk token, as you mentioned, right now, if the price were to go up, you have to sell even amounts, and that may not necessarily be the best amount that you want to sell. So I think having a divisible token is definitely a need, and it's a plus, right? But how you go about doing that is where the governance really comes in. So to that end, is there anything else that you want to add when it comes to governance?
So if you want to be part of the forum and talk about it, check out governance.muesliswap.com. And later on, if you want to check out our voting interface, go to vote.muesliswap.com.
Thank you, Pascal. We're going to jump into the very last question here. And I always like to ask this to everybody that comes here on the channel. What is next for Muesliswap?
So I think one thing that's really close on the horizon is going to be our newest version of the order book smart contract. So we have like a few optimizations in general, like cheaper prices, lower network fee and stuff like that. But we also will have features like automated cancellation. For example, if you place an order and it's not going through, we will auto-cancel it for you after a certain period of time. We are currently working on the Spectrum Finance integration, which is going to be especially useful with multi-DEX routing, because I mean, more pool providers just means more options to get better prices, right?
That is huge, and Spectrum just came online not too long ago, and they had their ISPO, if you want to call it that, you know, and their stake pool fill up from I think like 1 or 2 million all the way up to like 70% saturation or almost like 50 million ADA. Right, so a lot of big support coming in, and potentially a lot of liquidity as they're incentivizing people to pour more into their DEX. So that I think is going to be a huge proponent for you guys as well. And as you said, it's going to help out anybody who's using the multi-DEX aggregator. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I've got Pascal here joining me from Germany. It's a pleasure meeting you, shaking your hand, and chatting a little bit about Milk. If you guys want to find out more about what this particular team is bringing, not only to Cardano, but just to the crypto community, go ahead and check out the links down below in today's video description. If you guys found this particular video to be helpful or insightful, I would appreciate you if you could tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions for myself or Pascal, make sure to go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. That said, we'll see you guys in the next video.